What if I told you that you're probably running your pool pump all wrong, and it's costing you hundreds of dollars a year and not even keeping your pool as clean as you think? Most pool owners make this one simple mistake, but there's a formula, the same one the pros use, to get crystal clear water well slashing your energy bills. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what that is and how to apply it to your pool. This isn't about buying fancy new equipment or spending your weekend playing chemist. This is about understanding the one crucial job that your pool pump has and setting it up to do it perfectly without wasting one single watt of electricity. The mistake is running your pool pump on some random schedule based on nothing. Maybe it's 8 hours because that's what the pool guy told you 10 years ago, or maybe it's 12 hours because your neighbor swears by it, or maybe you just picked a number that sounded good and haven't touched your timer since. That's a mistake right there. But the fix, it's surprisingly simple. So stick with me because this one little formula is about to change the way that you see your pool forever. Let's be honest, when it comes to your pool pump timer, we have two camps. In Camp A, we sort of have the set it and forget it crowd. They just pick a runtime, call it 8 hours, and they just let their pool run. And then they kind of wince every time the electric bill comes and just sort of accept it as the cost of owning a pool. And then we have Camp B, the ones I like to call the paranoid operator, fearing the dreaded green swamp. They're running their pump 12, 14, maybe even 24 hours a day, using the thought process that more is always better. Sound familiar? Both of these approaches are incredibly common, but they're both fundamentally flawed. They're both based on guesswork, not your pool's specific needs. Running your pool pump based on your neighbor's advice is like trying to navigate Los Angeles with a map of New York. I mean, you might get somewhere eventually, but it's going to be frustrating and you're going to waste a lot of gas, or in this case, electricity. The thing is, every pool is its own little world. It has a specific volume of water, a specific pump with a specific flow rate, and a unique environment. Whether that's the blistering sun of Arizona or the spring pollen apocalypse in Georgia, or the falling leaves in New England. It has a unique bather load. Is it just you swimming laps, or is it a dozen kids every weekend perfecting their cannonballs? A generic one-size-fits-all schedule cannot account for all that. Basically, you're using a sledgehammer for a job that needs a scalpel. And this isn't just inefficient. You're failing to meet your primary mission, which is to keep your water safe, clear, and inviting. That random schedule isn't just a bad habit, it's the single biggest and most expensive mistake that you're making as a pool owner. So what's the real damage here? What's the price you're paying for all this guesswork? Well, the first price is an obvious one. It's your money. Your pool pump is an energy hog. It's often the second largest user of electricity in your home, second only to your AC unit. When you run it for just 1 hour longer than you need to, you're literally throwing your money away. Let's do some quick back of the napkin math here. Just take a typical single speed pool pump that uses about 2,000 watts of electricity per hour. If the rate you pay for electricity is say 18 cents per kilowatt hour, that pump costs you 36 cents every hour that it's in use. Now, that doesn't sound like much, right? But let's say your pool pump needs to be run for 6 hours, but you run it for 8. That's 2 useless hours a day, about 60 useless hours a month, which equates to about $21 or so in your electric bill every single month. And that's just if you run it a couple hours more than it needs to be run. If you run it 10 or 12 hours when it only needs to be run for 6, you can double or triple that. We're talking hundreds of dollars a year vanishing from your bank account and you get zero benefit. But it's not just about the money, is it? The other side of that coin, the scarier side, is about water quality. What happens if you guess too short? What if you chose to run your pump for 8 hours, but it really needs 10? This is where it can get really ugly really fast. Insufficient filtration is a welcome mat for algae. When water sits stagnant for too long in the sun, those tiny little algae spores start having a party. First, the water may look dull and the sparkle is gone, and then you notice a little hint of green on the steps, and next you're dealing with a full-grown algae bloom that's turned your backyard oasis into a green swamp. Now you're in reaction mode. You're dumping in expensive shock and algicide. You're running your pump 24/7, trying to filter the water. You're wasting all the electricity that you thought you were saving. It's an expensive, exhausting, and totally avoidable cycle. And that's not even mentioning the unseen bacteria that can thrive when water's not filtered properly, creating a potentially unhealthy swimming environment. So if guessing is wrong and running it too much or too little is a disaster, then what's the answer? The answer is not some magic number of hours. It's a core concept that the pros use called turnover rate. A turnover is just a fancy way of saying how long it takes your pool to take every single gallon of water out of your pool, push it through the filters, and send it back to your pool, otherwise known as one full cycle. So think of it like your body's circulatory system. The pump is your heart, the plumbing is your veins, and the filters, they're your kidney, cleaning out all the gunk. For your body to stay healthy, your heart has to keep pumping the blood through the kidneys and keeping it clean. For your pool to stay healthy, its heart, the pump, has to stay running long enough to circulate and clean that entire body of water. Now, the gold standard for residential or home pools is to get at least one full cycle every single day. That's just your baseline though. Call that an absolute minimum. On really hot days or after a big party, you might shoot for even 1.5 or 2 full cycles. But the principle is what matters here. Your pump's runtime should be dictated by hitting the goal of whatever turnover rate you're trying to hit for the situation that you're in. And this idea shifts you from a passive owner who just turns on the pump and hopes for clear water to an informed owner that actually controls it. Once you know how to calculate this, you hold the keys to the kingdom of crystal clear water and lower energy bills. All right, enough talk. Let's ditch the guesswork here and get you in control of your pool. Grab your phone's calculator and a tape measure. We've got 3 simple steps. And step 1 is to figure out your pool's volume. First, how much water are we talking about? Well, it depends on the shape of your pool. So let's start with a rectangular pool. If you have a rectangular pool, you take your length times your width times your average depth times 7.5, and that number equals your volume in gallons. So let's say you have a 30 by a 15 foot. You'll need the average depth, so you'll measure the deep end and the shallow end, add them up and divide by 2. If you have a 3 foot and a 7 foot, then your average is going to be 5. So in this case, we'd take 30 times 15 times 5 times 7.5. And we'd have 16,875 gallons. If you have a round pool, the calculation is diameter times average depth times 5.9. For an oval pool, you're looking at length times width times average depth times 6.7. Now, if you have a kidney-shaped pool or an irregular shaped pool, kind of like what I have, the calculation can look kind of tricky, but it really doesn't have to be. Basically, the calculation is going to be length times average width times average depth times 7.5. The way you calculate average width would just be to take the minimum width and the maximum width, add them together, and divide by 2. Same thing with depth. So let's say you had a depth on one end of 3.5 feet and a depth on the other end of 5.5 feet. Then the total together would be 11, or the average would be 5.5. Width, let's say you had a width of 18 on one side and 10 on the other. That would be a total of 28. Divide that by 2 and you get 14 for your average. Now, just bear with me and don't throw yourself into the deep end over the math, because the hard part is over. Just jot that number down. That's our target, and the next 2 steps are fairly simple. Step 2 is figuring out how much water does your pump move. This is called flow rate, and it's measured in gallons per minute. You can almost always find this on the pump's label or in its manual. For the purpose of me explaining this, let's just say the pump we have is rated at 60 gallons per minute. Okay, for step 3, we're going to put those 2 numbers together and find our magic number, which is pretty simple. You're just going to take your pool's volume and divide it by your flow rate. Now, we're going to convert our flow rate to hours to make the math easy. So don't worry, I'm not going full nerd on you here. You're just going to take your flow rate, which in our example was 60 gallons per minute, and times it by the number of minutes in an hour, 60. So 60 gallons per minute times 60 minutes is 3,600. That's how many gallons per hour your flow rate is. Then the final glorious calculation is 16,875 gallons divided by 3,600 gallons per hour, giving you a total of 4.68 hours of runtime. And that's it. That's your turnover rate. So for the pool in the example, we need to run the pump 4 hours and 45 minutes to filter every drop of water in the pool. That's it. That's your new baseline. Not 8 hours, not 10 hours, not 12 hours, 4.7 hours. Every minute that you run that pump beyond that amount of time on a typical day is literally just burning money. Okay, so that number is your foundation or your baseline, but a true pool pro knows how to adapt to changing conditions. There's a lot of pool pros out there that would tell you a great rule of thumb on a hot day is to run your pump for 1 hour for every 10 degrees Fahrenheit that it is. So if it's a 90-degree day, then you're aiming for about 9 hours of run time to help combat the effects of the sun, which will promote algae growth and burn off chlorine. And yes, that gets into guessing again. So if you're guessing that I'm not a fan, you've guessed correctly. I prefer to go full nerd and do the calculation and get it right because I don't like to waste electricity and I definitely don't want to underfilter my water. So if you've had like a pool party and you've had a heavy bather load in the pool, you want to aim for a turnover rate a little higher than the baseline. Maybe you want to go to 1.5 times turnover rate or even 2 times the turnover rate. In some cases, with some pools, heavy bather load combined with sun and heat, combined with maybe dogs jumping in and out of your pool like mine, you may even go to 3 times the turnover rate. Those are things that can change your baseline on a day-to-day, but you shouldn't set your pump to run every day for those situations. And this is where we have to talk about the absolute game changer in pool tech, the variable speed pump or the VS pump. The calculation I just did was for a single speed pump that's either all on or all off. A variable speed pump is a genius. It can run at super low speeds for long periods of time. Why is that so great? 2 reasons. First, the energy savings are insane because here's the wild part about pump physics. If you reduce the pump speed by 1/2, the flow rate gets reduced by 1/2. But you reduce the energy consumption down to 1/8 of what it was at full speed. Now, that's not a typo. You can have a variable speed pump and run it on a low speed 24 hours a day and spend less money than you would spend with your single speed pump running for, say, 6 to 8 hours a day. The second reason is you get ridiculously good filtration with a variable speed pump because when water moves through your filters more slowly, it can capture tinier particles, leaving you with water that's not just clean, but it looks polished. A variable speed pump will allow you to get 2 to 3 turnovers a day for pennies on the dollar, leaving you with the best water quality imaginable. So there you have it. The biggest mistake most pool owners make has nothing to do with chemicals or skimming. It's running that pool pump on an expensive and random schedule that has nothing to do with the needs of their pool. And the solution is to simply stop guessing and start calculating. Find the volume, find the flow rate, and calculate your pool's unique turnover time. You now have the exact tool you need to build a schedule that saves you serious money and gives you the safest, cleanest pool on the block. So now that you have the formula, go do the math. I'm genuinely curious to see who was overrunning their pool pump and by how much. Let me know in the comments. Let's see who is overrunning their pool pump the most. And if this video just saved you from making a costly mistake, then do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button for more tips on how to save time and money with your pool. And if you're thinking about upgrading to a variable speed pool pump, I'll put some links down below in the description of some very good brands that I know are really reliable. Those are affiliate links and they do help the channel at no extra cost to you. I really appreciate it when you use them. If you do end up getting a variable speed pool pump and have any trouble calculating your flow rate because of the change of speeds, then just drop a comment below and I'll try to answer any questions that you have. I really hope that this video helped you out today. Thanks for watching Clearwater Chronicles, and I'll see you in the next one.